Testing, testing. Test 1 2 1 2. Okay. So this is going to be a short stream, 2 hours or so, and then I have to go. I've just been working on the app bundling. I looked through all the things that Steam requires, which is actually pretty easy, so I don't have to change too much. What I added is the stripping of these debug symbols. Well, the main reason is so people don't start, well, not quite sure actually. So if you strip the debug symbols, the code is harder to decompile. It's industry standard, and I don't see a reason why I shouldn't strip them, other than it makes it harder to debug. But I found out that if you keep the debug info, I mean, that's common sense, but I just didn't think of it. If you create a file that has all the debug info in it and you save that in your archive alongside the executable that was released, then you can, if someone sends you a crash report, you can use that simple file to make the crash readable, even though the symbols were stripped. So that's what I'm doing here in this bundling target, my make file. So I check out the readme, the license file, and then I create the symbol file using LLVM object copy. And then I strip everything from the executable, and then I tell the executable that, hey, this debug file exists. And then I now create 2 zip files, one for release and one for archiving, that has the debug symbols, and actually I don't need the license in there. Yeah. And I would like to have this checkout command create the extensions immediately, so I don't have the checked out file hanging around, but couldn't get that to work immediately, so that's fine. So yesterday I tweaked a lot of things in the game. Let me start the game up. Let's make a debugger build. And I'll have to look over what I did because it was a long day yesterday. And I have to learn that this has a new name. But actually, let's run it in the debugger. So I've added a hunger meter to the bottom left that says full. I added experience, current experience, and experience needed for the next level. I moved this around a bit so that it looks better, hopefully. And then I've changed a lot of the enemies. So I'm still torn. Okay. I'm still torn if I'm still not sure how I use these symbols for the let's call them agents, things that move. For example, this deer. Obviously there are only 26 characters in the alphabet, and only having 26 is a problem in itself. But there are so many collisions with names. The letter S is so contested. There's shopkeeper, there's snakes, there's what else was it? Skeleton, etc. And many more that would have to share the same letter. So the question is, do I really only exclusively use one letter for one enemy type, which is of course very good if you want to learn the game, to understand the game, but it's also very limiting. And then I have the other, one possible remedy would be to use lowercase letters as well. But they are pretty hard to parse. Another solution would be to use different colors, but as it is right now, all my colors have the same value, which means the same brightness. So colorblind people will have a really hard time telling those apart. And another problem is exactly this here. Right now, human objects, strange sentence. Humans in the game all have the @ sign. That's also a compromise I'm not that happy about. It frees up a couple of letters. For example, I had the problem with traveler and turtle, both of which don't have synonyms with different letters. So there's tortoise, of course, but it's also a T. And this is, I'm not quite sure. I think it's having other entities with the same symbol as your hero can be confusing, and it's also, it makes other humans black boxes, so you don't know who they are just by looking at them, which you would be able to if you were actually living in this world. So it's compromises and compromises. Maybe if I free up the lowercase letters, I can make these two guys here travelers, so that they would have a T symbol. And turtle would be lowercase because it's a docile entity and an animal basically. But yeah. Those are problems. What's a happy coincidence, not coincidence, incident was this here. So this is a corpse. Yesterday I was working on the dirt hills, and I don't remember why, but I realized that I could use the zombie sprite for the dirt hills, and then I have all these dead bodies. I mean, they're not that many, but enough to have an impact that make this whole journey a lot more sinister and I think interesting. So I can hit them, and sometimes they have loot. And I, as a precaution, bumped my Steam age rating up. Because that's also a coincidence. I looked at pricing today, and I looked at, what was it, Caves of Cod and Dwarf Fortress. They both had 30 bucks, but I saw the age rating on Dwarf Fortress was 16 in Germany. And I realized, well, maybe I didn't do my classification correctly. So I'm also 16 now because of the corpses. But that's fine. This wasn't meant for kids. Anyway. So yeah. Also, I worked on the blue tinting for the night and spent, I think, 1.5 hours bashing my head against the wall with the shaders, because I have no idea about digital color theory, and I realized that my what was it, the brightness range that I had to play with was, after all the calculations I make in the shader, was only, I think, 0.2. So from 0 to 1 was only 0.2. Was 20%. So in that range, at the bottom, everything would be black, and 20% higher, everything would be blown out. I have no idea how that happened, but I've tweaked all the knobs I had. I went into the color palette. I increased brightness, increased saturation of the color palette. Then did the same thing in the shader, in the post-processing, in the after texture reads, and I couldn't get it to work. I have no idea how I arrived at this, what I'm having, what I did have that worked as well as it did. And so I scrapped the whole thing and just, I'm not sure what I did, but I hacked it. I hacked it so that the UI is not in the color tinting or desaturation pass. That's not really a pass, but it's a color.rgb times another color. So yeah, it works now. There's still a bit of jitter when I restart, sometimes at least, but it's pretty good now. Another thing I did was I reduced the time that poison acts, because yeah, I was constantly dying. Jesus. 2 traps like this. Yeah. Another problem are these boulder puzzles. I don't like that the robbers are not an R. The boulder puzzles, they are super hard to predict. So the problem is, because the path changes, parts of it collapse. And so I placed all these by hand, but looking at the editor alone, I can't see if they soft lock the player, because they have an impossible configuration, which is very, very bad. And also I haven't looked into it, but there might be a simple test, but I'm not sure if there is. So I have a test for the path that just A stars through the path, but it ignores these pushable boulders, because that algorithm has no idea how to solve them. And I don't think that's trivial. So the one solution is, of course, to just play the game enough times to find them all. But there are so many permutations of the path that that seems unlikely, that I won't miss something. Maybe if I come up with a systematic way, but I'm not sure right now. But yeah, that's a problem. Other than that, what else did I do? Let me look at the... Actually, that's a website. What else did I do? Random pitch audio playback, yes. Corpses. Short creation helpers. Oh yeah, shorts. Yesterday I released a... Well, release is a bit overblown, but I made a short that had the game title and website on the screen pretty prominently, and I don't think that went down well, because I have... But it's not that bad. So 1/3 of users disliked the video, which could just be that they're not interested, that they slipped with their thumb. But I think it's probably because I had the title in there. Or they just don't like the game. That's of course fair. But yeah, I think from now on I will not add the title, and it didn't have a huge impact or any measurable impact in wishlist, which is a bad metric, granted. I have to look at the... I don't like this tree here. Let me look at the website. There's a difference. So what I did see is an increase after the Steam page went live. So I think well, I'm not sure if I can see clicks on the Steam page. But here's a blue tint and UI is unaffected. So let's see. Statistics. So today's the 19th, I think. So I had a good amount of the page visits. and I think 3 downloads of the game. But it's, I mean, there's no bump there. It's pretty constant. And it has been, well, I have too little data. What I do see is a bump on the 11th, and that is when the Steam page went live. That was about twice as much traffic as I had now, which is not much. It's 40 people a day, depending on, I mean, it says access 110, but then visits 35. It's pretty useless, but you can see a trend. And well, releasing the shorts didn't have a huge impact. But they take a small amount of time to create, so I'll just continue making them. But I think Google just shows the shorts to such a wide audience that many watchers will not be interested in games or in these types of games at all. So even though they get quite a lot of views on the last two I did, I don't think it reaches actual potential fans of the game. In that capacity, but I'm sure it does now and then, and that's reason enough to keep going with them. Yeah, I also added this snow, a bit more snow in the uppermost section of the map, which is, I think, really cool. And you get snow corpses, which is awesome. Thinking about the height of the trees, if that's okay, or if I should make them definitely not taller but shorter. Just a bit, because they add a lot of atmosphere because they're so large. Yeah, what else did I do? Berry bushes, mini tweaks. So Ethan had the idea of adding bushes that have food in them, and I've added them intermittently. So there are not many of them, but they do provide you with food. I renamed there was meat in the game. I renamed it to just food, which is not that great, probably. I'm always torn between making things vague so that something happens in the player's mind, or making things explicit and verbose to really draw the player in. I'm torn between those two a lot of times. Well, one reason is that being vague uses up much less text, and text real estate in this game is quite expensive. So that might be a reason. And yeah, I'll have to think about that. But yeah, so the Steam build, it might actually just take the executables that I've released on the website. So that would be a huge plus. I still want to, talking about technical things, I still want to reduce the size of the executable, which I can with well, there are three major things. The first one is I can prune unused audio from the audio file, but that's not that easy. And that's the first one. The second one is using a codec for the audio files. So ogvorbis or vorbis, not sure how you pronounce it. There's a STB library that decodes the files, but it's gigantic. I think it's 50,000 lines of code. That'll slow down my compilation. I looked at the library and I mapped out the call tree for just decoding because I don't need encoding. But that's still massive. But maybe, yeah, maybe less than 50,000, hopefully. So I could do that, and then that would drastically reduce the game size from, let me guess, at least by 90 megabytes. So it's at 240 or something. And if I combine that with pruning of the audio files, then it's minus 120 megs at least. And then the other thing is compressing the terrain data. It's completely uncompressed right now. Compressing it would probably not be that hard. Well, actually what I can do is, instead of using a codec, I can use ULaw. Not U, but MuLaw. Is that... I think that's half. 2 to 1, yeah. This is... ULaw is pretty awesome. So WAV files and all PCM files, as you probably know, have samples, 16-bit samples, and 44 or 48,000 of them per second. This algorithm only saves the difference between samples, so the range is less. So it can use 8-bit per sample. And the great thing is it's position independent. Kind of, I think. So you can wait, are there blocks? I'm not sure about the details, specifics, but without doing anything, you can compress the bytes while playing. You get half the size, but well, I still have atmosphere tracks and sound music tracks, so those take up a lot of space. So it would probably easier to use Ogg Vorbis. And yeah, so I could bring the, combined with the compression of the tile map, I could probably bring it down to under 20 megabytes. And that would be awesome, because it makes everything easier. Maybe if I'm over ambitious, I can get it down to 10 megabytes, but that might be extreme. Yeah, maybe I'll tackle that before the release. If I have time, yeah. But I'll definitely tackle that. So yeah, what I was looking to do, but I don't have the time now, is testing Steam with the releases I have right now, so that I upload the builds I have and then install the Steam client and see if everything works. And if that's working, then I can sleep more easily, because that was a question. I think I want the traps to be destroyed when you push a boulder over them. Yeah, so now that I understand Steam, and I mean, I understand it enough, I guess. It's pretty complex, but now that I have a understanding of the release process on Steam, it's actually pretty easy. It's 10 times easier than Apple, at least the one I know from a couple of years ago, the Apple process. Apple may have made strides there as well, but it was pretty horrible. Okay, maybe I should increase the drop chance for these berries. There's a guy who doesn't talk. That's right, because when I released the preview yesterday, preview 9, I removed the dialogue because they were just saying garbage, test garbage. But I can add it back in. Why is it checked out? Okay, that's weird. Where are we here? And in the load function, the shrub, let's say 50%. %50 drop chance. Okay, this is a turtle. Actually, let me try. Try making these lowercase. And that's the wrong one. Smuggler. Where did I have the R? Okay, the R is with raptor. So that's the problem. I want to rename this robber again. Because smuggler looks like a snake. And this looks like someone walking, an R. But then, yeah, I mean, let's make the raptor a moth. I was debating that. And these get a T. Vendor is a V. Maybe like this. Well, the M in this font isn't very good. Also, the G is protruding out the bottom. That's very bad. Why are the worms that fast? Worm sits. Why is the worm walking? So if the enemy is not sitting, which is a horrible name, should be not moving, stationary. And he well, He's sitting and he certainly doesn't chase. Okay, but he might attack. And same here with aim. Let's see what happens. Okay, this G doesn't work. I've not come up with a good, consistent solution. I'm not sure where the worms are. That moth hit me. There was a hornet. Don't like this symbol. Okay, why is this? Why does this color thing have a blue tint? It's not good. So yeah, that's basically what I was doing yesterday evening. Just playing the game and tweaking stuff. Oh, this actually looks like an ant now. I've not used S. Oh, S is for snake, yeah. Arachnid is... It's incredibly hard to square these naming limitations with what you want to have. Is there no way forward? Where am I? There it goes. Uh-oh. And I think there are still far too many arrows in the game. Oh god, that's the first one. Did I say too many? I meant far too few. Okay, that color is nice. For the moths. Don't like the actual letter Y. But this is, wait. It kind of works. But using lowercase letters also suggests that it's a smaller creature. So let's turn the deer into a rabbit. Or do I leave? The gecko is certainly not. Let's turn the gecko to a rabbit and the deer to a capital D. Yeah, I think I'm going in circles, but that's okay. So zombies are of course cool because they have the letter Z. The only other creature I can think of off the top of my head is zebra. Which might also be fun. A fun addition. But yeah, I just I can't quite detach the symbols from what they represent. So that makes it doubly hard. So an S should represent a snake or a worm or something. And the R for rubber has 2 legs, so that's kind of human. But maybe I should do away with that kind of thinking. Not sure. I think it's that they're in a 3D world that makes it harder. I'm still not 100% sure if I shouldn't switch back to the sprites, but the big problem with the sprites is that the player becomes this, I can actually show it, becomes this character. And I mean, the whole fantasy dies immediately, for me at least. Yeah, it's just incomparable. It's like if you see a figure, then that's for me at least, then my mind immediately jumps into another reference frame. It's not as free to interpret what it sees. It's weird. Maybe that's just me. But I actually had a commenter say that it looks scary and their imagination runs wild. So I think I'm not the only one. I mean, I could. That's the problem. If I said, okay, the player stays the @ sign, I give everything else sprites, then what about the other humans? Are they all also @ signs? And why is my A button stuck? I think this controller is slowly dying. Because that doesn't happen on the older one, PlayStation 4 controller, only on the 5. That's tragic. I mean, sprites would give me much more freedom. With the monsters. But it would also destroy the object creature boundary that I have. That everything that's an object has a sprite. Everything that's a creature has a letter. Apart from the problem that depicting a turtle in this space might bring. So that's an ant. I have, that's maybe a rabbit. That's a rabbit. I have some here. Spiders and snake. What else do I have? I had... Well, that seems to be it. Oh no, here. A wolf. That's a sheep. Oh, that's a wolf. That's the bear. And I mean... Okay, I mean the wife or the yellow jacket looks actually scary. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, I changed the T letter. So let's not save that. Yeah, it has to be letters. First of all, it's much cooler. Second of all, it's how do you say that? It spurs on the imagination. But it also makes it harder to get into the game, of course. That's fine. This is not a mass market print. And I don't expect everybody to like this. Yeah, but I won't start making everything in letters. Or maybe I do? Let's try that just for fun. Because I didn't go that way. Haven't gone that way in a long time. I was always in the creature direction. So yeah, here we are. Potion. Let's make this a... These should maybe all be a lowercase. Or... Oh yeah, in Rogue they look... In Rogue, the look of the letter is more important, I think. Is that true? That's a star. food is... Potion was exclamation mark. It was... Well, let's make that also a potion. Food was colon, I think. Okay, props. Tree is star. Rock is large O. Arrow. Oh, that's okay. I like the vegetation. I mean, actually, that's not that much different. That much difference. Other than it maybe being even harder to understand. But actually, I think it looks more cheap, maybe. And the not sure. May actually be better. Oh, that was close. Almost stepped into the trap. I don't think it's better. But I do think it it removes the expectation to understand anything based on appearance other than the level, of course. That might free up the mind even more. Yeah, I think my stream is dying. That's great. Well, anyways, that was a fun experiment. And I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully with better connection.